My name's Mary Jane Parker. I was born here, and I've lived here since, except for grad school and a year of teaching in South Dakota. So,
And so what is your role? What do you do here in New Orleans?
well, I'm an artist, and I also teach at the New Orleans Center for Creative Arts, referred to as NOCA. It's an arts high school where students come for visual arts, performing arts, creative writing, and I'm the chair of the visual arts department, and I teach printmaking.
So would you tell me a little bit about your work? Because we were looking at the photos and collections that you have online. But you're a mixed media artist, and I would just like to know a little bit more about your various collections and
Okay.
what maybe drove you to create them.
Okay. Well, I work with a lot of different media, particularly printmaking and encaustic and glass. I use all those interchangeably. And I think that probably the main body of my work is reflecting some of the studies of hysteria from the 1800s during the time that Charcot was at the hospital in Paris working with women who were not considered acceptable in society because they did things that were out of the norm. During that time, I worked for a little bit of time at NOMA in the New Orleans Museum of Art. I was the curator of education, so I trained the docents and helped with all the education activities. It was a very small department back then, and I wasn't paid very well. So I eventually decided that if I really wanted to be an artist, I needed to do something that allowed me more time in the studio. So I took a job with a program that is now defunct, but unfortunately it was called Arts Connection, and it was a program for teaching art to elementary students in the classroom with the classroom teacher, so a partnership with the classroom teacher instead of release time. And we did planning with the teacher and developed projects that related to the curriculum. And I did that for probably about 13 years part-time, which allowed me to have 5 days in the studio and 3 days teaching, which was really great. And it was also exhausting, and I don't think I could have done it for full-time. 35 kids or something like that with one teacher who sometimes wasn't that engaged was tricky. But it was a great program, and it allowed me to be an artist and to also be a teacher and make a living. These days, the school system is so fragmented, it's kind of hard to know what's going on. It used to be that everyone was Orleans Parish schools, and there were very few charter schools. Even the schools that were Arts Connection made a choice to be a part of it. They didn't all get it. But now with the charter schools, everyone has different schedules. They all have different. In fact, even the talented program I think is a little fragmented because charter schools have to decide whether to have a talented teacher. Although it was always my understanding that talented kids were required to have services once they were identified, but I don't know how that's working now.
So would you talk a little bit about NOCA and sort of what is happening there, and also more about your role there?
Well, I was hired at NOCA in 1999, which was the last year we were in the old building here uptown, and moved with them to the new building. And at that point, we became a state agency. And so originally NOCA was part of the Orleans Parish school system. We kind of flew under the radar a little bit, and nobody bothered what we were doing. But when we moved to the new building, it was so much more upkeep and such really wanting it to stay at a level that was a state-of-the-art program that the administration decided to to write legislation to make it a state agency. So the board is made up of people that are written into the legislation that are from the NOCA Institute, which is the 501c3 group, and then legislators, people who are alumni or faculty are on the board. I think it was really actually before Katrina that Alan Askew and his organization came in and helped us put together a master plan. And the master plan entailed, it talked about the possibility of residential site, which hasn't happened yet. But because we're a state agency, people were trying to think of a way to make NOCA more state friendly. Even now, we have students that come from as far as like Abita Springs and every day for school, half day. And the one thing that's changed a lot is that 6 years ago, we added academics to the program, which the school used to be a half-day program. So students would go to their academics from 8 to 12 and then come to NOCA from 1:15 to 3:45. And then we also had an access program in the afternoon from 4 to 6:30. After Katrina, because Orleans Parish broke up so much, students used to get busing from their school at midday to NOCA. And when Orleans Parish divided up, actually before Katrina we had, sorry, I'm going backwards. Before Katrina we had an 8:10 to 10:45 program, and then a 1:15 to 3:45, and then 4 to 6:30 was just students like Catholic schools that wouldn't allow them to come in the morning. And that was a really great schedule because we had students when they were fresh, and now they come only at 4 to 6:30, and it's really a rough time. But it's because the Orleans Parish schools broke up and there was no busing after that. And so the busing changed a lot. And so as a result, I think they started talking about the academic program and making a program on site that would allow students to stay there all day.
How important do you think it is for kids to see art on an equal level as like other disciplines?
Oh, I think it's really important. And I think that's why the Arts Connection program for me was so great, was that it was like kindergarten kids seeing artwork and reflecting on it. Sometimes I feel at a disadvantage in New Orleans because we just don't have a lot around us. We can't just walk kids over to the Met or drive them to. And I think it sort of drove the point home because I used to go to Paris a lot because I have a friend that lives there, and I would go in the summers, and her partner who grew up in Paris was talking about how they would just walk out of their school and walk into an institution that had an art thing going on, or they would just look at the architecture in their own environment. And he grew up just feeling that culture was rich everywhere because he had such a great experience. And so I think it's really amazing to me that students aren't exposed to that at every level. And so, but I'm an art teacher, so.